morning. This is a vlog and a summary of the videos by Predictive History, Death by Gerontocracy, and Secret Societies, I think the other one was. So I'll start with Secret Societies. And it's just my quick notes and then also my thoughts and comments. But he started by talking about life as a game, and if life is kind of like, if you think of game theory, and everyone is trying to win a game, what's the best way to win? It's by cheating. So this is kind of true. There's another video that shows that if you're actually playing in game theory, if you're not cheating, which I assume cheating would beat this method, but if you're not cheating, then the other method that is actually beneficial to everyone is cooperation. And if you watch this other video, I think it's by, it's not Vsauce, it's like the other guy that was associated with Vsauce. It was really good, and it showed that, played out over time, cooperation actually was really good. Now, cheating beats this. And how does it beat it? It beats it through coordination. So if everybody's playing by themselves, then people who team up actually have an advantage. But if everybody can see that some people are teaming up, then they try and make it fair by teaming up with other people and making alliances. So it becomes now alliances versus each other. And whoever has maybe the bigger alliance has more of a chance of winning. And so what people do is they make secret alliances. These secret alliances are conspiracies. And these are just things where people don't really admit that they are in an alliance. And so what do people make their alliances based on? They make them based on things like family, religion, race, language. And these are kind of known, like people can kind of tell that this is an alliance. The other thing that people can make alliances on, he said, that was actually more powerful in a way, not ultimately, I think, because I always say God is the most powerful, but he said that transgression. So transgressions are the breaking of social norms and laws. So when you make greater transgressions, you actually create a greater cohesion and a greater synchronicity. So an example I could give from my own life about this is, first I'll say that his examples was that there's a basic transgression. Example of what a basic transgression is something like a joke or a prank. And you kind of see these all the time, right? And there's different kinds of jokes and there's different kinds of pranks, Some are more acceptable and some are less acceptable. But I'll give an example of a transgression that me and a friend committed back in high school. So one of my friends scrawled on the bathroom wall a threat, and it had the whole school shut down for a day. It was taken seriously by the staff, and then they gave the option that you don't have to come to school that day, and so we got the day off. We never told anyone. It was a secret. We both knew about it. It was a secret alliance. And what it did was it kind of almost brought about like a, I don't know if closeness is the right word, but we both knew about it and we both didn't tell anyone, right? Because we could get in trouble. And then the synchronicity part, I think this part is actually really important, but it's actually hard to explain. I think that synchronicity is like being on the same wavelength in a way is a better way to put it. And when you and other people of the same group or who have the same alliance are on the same wavelength because you are believing the same things, or you are you have your intentions similar, it makes things line up for you in a way. Okay, so that was a basic transgression, is joking and pranks. And when you do these, you feel a bit of power, you feel empowered, and you also feel somewhat of liberty, like you have the ability to do these things. You're liberated, and it's also addictive. So he said that a high transgression, or like a very high transgression, maybe the ultimate one, is child sacrifice, because it breaks the most social norms, social taboos. And so the secret societies who are out there that do these things, they do them for power, and they do them because they believe that they're releasing, he said, divine energy. I don't know if the word divine is correct, but I do think that they are serving evil, and they're getting some sort of energy from that, evil energy. And then he said another one is incest, which he also said that they do these things in public. So this is the predictive history guy that I'm talking about here. He said that they do these things in public, and the real leaders of the world do this, and then the leaders that you see on TV, the elected politicians, they're puppets. This thing about these very high transgressions, these are true. And it's very evil. They also, I should have they add a layer of keeping people within this group or alliance or conspiracy, because now people do not want to face disgrace if they get found out. So one example of disgrace would be Prince Andrew on the Epstein list. He was found on the Epstein list, or he was found implicated in this child sex trafficking ring or whatever, and his name is disgraced because of it. And I think that the royal family of England had to pay a lot of money, and basically they just kind of tried their best to cover it up, and but basically what it was is he got found out, and now there's this disgrace because of this, what happened, and other people will try and distance themselves from the person who got found out, because they are also guilty, but they don't want to share in that guilt. They don't want to come forward. They don't want to be disgraced. And so this leads to an amount of control as well. So this cohesion is actually like a deal, and it's actually like you're on strings. So this is what happens with a lot of these politicians. That's what's currently happening with this Epstein list. Trump is implicated, and now there is all these calls for people saying, release this list. We want to see who's on this Epstein list, who was on his flight logs, who was going to his island. We know he was an Israeli blackmail, an Israeli Mossad agent working in blackmail. Who did he have dirt on? So anyways, now the next thing that I want to talk about was his next video called Death by Gerontocracy. So gerontocracy, that means rule by old people. And so it's a lot of facts here. So Canada has house prices that are skyrocketing. Inflation is rising. Birth rates are collapsing. There is mass immigration. we have 1.26 births per woman, and we have 25% first generation Canadians. So there's 1.26 births per woman. This is not a sustainable rate. It's not a maintenance rate for the population. It's a decline rate, and it means that the population will shrink, and this has a lot of implications. And so now there's mass immigration to, they don't want to use the word, but replace the white population who is not having children. So now we're bringing in a bunch of immigrants. The immigrants are mainly from India, but there's also a lot from China too. There's also a taboo in Canada where nobody wants to talk about this, although everybody knows about it. Nobody wants to talk openly about it. And we're going to get into some more things that people don't want to talk about in Canada. In 25 or 50 years, there will be few white Canadians because this is a trend. This means that it has started a long time ago, and this is the path that it's taking, and it's heading in a direction, and we can see the direction. The first time I actually heard about this trend, I was pretty young, and I got really mad because I thought someone was just making fun of me. They said on the bus to school, in I think around like grade 8 or something, so I would have been like 13. I'm around 30 now, but I was always getting bullied for having freckles, and my hair was slightly orange, so everybody was calling me a ginger because of the South Park episode which came out near that time that said it was about gingers, or people with red hair and freckles and pale skin, and it said that they have no souls, and it was just making fun of them. So people watch this, kids watch this, and they're brutal when they pick on people, and I got picked on because I was the only person who had freckles and slightly red hair. And the person on the bus said to me that, in the future there won't be any people with red hair and freckles. And I just got mad at him because I thought he was also making fun of me, but he was, kind of like saying, like, I'm not trying to make fun of you, I'm telling you, it's a fact. And so somebody obviously told him the truth. I didn't actually know about it at that time. Wasn't really thinking about that. I was more thinking about myself. But this is the truth, that in 25 or 50 years, there will be few white Canadians. There will be very few red-haired people with freckles because of the way genes work. These are called recessive genes. So this is causing conflict and tension in Canada. It's actually causing a ton of conflict and tension in Canada. And it's maybe one of the main reasons why the average people are really feeling terrible. And it's got to do with ethnic tension, conflict. And basically, we live in a country where you cannot really say anything. We had it forced down our throat in school about racism, diversity is our strength, don't be a hater, don't be a racist, all this stuff that came from the teachers. And it was really forced down our throat, and they were always putting everywhere, what are essentially propaganda posters, teaching us things like, diversity is our strength, we are a cultural mosaic in Canada, all this kind of stuff, And at the time, it wasn't so bad. We kind of for me it was horrible, But I was a kid, so when you're a kid, you really do not understand almost anything. It's like you understand things on a much more energetic level, but then as you get older, you kind of lose the energetic level and you understand things on a realistic level that is reflecting the real world. But anyways, there's a balance there. But yeah, we were propagandized when I was a kid. And it's still really bad. So you have a lot of people who really swallowed the propaganda and they're trying to live in some sort of I would say it's like a guilt. The white people are living in sort of like under a guilt system where, they are constantly like trying to suppress themselves in order to empower other people, other voices, and it's just very tense. It's very weird, and there's a lot of passive aggression and defensive-ness in the country now. There's not open discussion about these things. Everybody's very afraid. So, the government, despite all of this, it keeps on insisting on increasing immigrants. Actually, the government wants 100 million people in Canada by the year 2100. Right now we're at 40 million. Those are not going to come from increased birth rates. They're not going to incentivize white people to have children. They're going to just keep incentivizing people to come here, which is pretty easy if they want to come from less developed countries. They have an illusion of Canada being great. And actually, compared to where they came from, maybe that's true, but they're just being used as pawns. In other countries, like in Australia, there are more immigrants compared to the population. It's about 1/3 immigrants. In Canada, it's about 1/4. In Germany, it's about 1/5. The US, Spain, and the UK are all at about 15%. And these numbers are just really set to increase. So this will lead to more ethnic tension, less social cohesion, less, obviously, homogeneity, and just increased tensions. But the thing is, and this is a very important point, is that things really happen based on group consensus. And so I would say they brainwashed the current group, used very sophisticated brainwashing tactics to brainwash the current group, the white people. And then, things like silencing everybody who spoke out against it, things like calling people racist. If you speak out against it, you'll be called a racist in private, in public, so public shaming, things like this. And then, so they've done all this stuff, and now the immigrants are really flowing in, and so they have people, the spirit of people is a lot broken. So it's that's how it's really working, And then they use a lot of other things. Distraction is a huge one. Religion is a huge one. Religion has gone way down into the toilet. So, which is really sad, but the numbers has really shrank. And the distraction is huge. The atomization is huge. They make everybody feel like an individual. Everybody is defensive. Everybody has like some sort of very limited view of how things work because there's not much reality out there. There's not much facts. And so it's like it's coming up next to them like an elephant in the room that's growing bigger, and they're just moving more and more toward the wall around it. Okay, and actually I believe that a lot of people are living in parallel realities, different realities, and especially old people are living in different realities. Essentially, I do believe we all ultimately share the same reality, but I do believe that people are in sort of a perceptual way or a cognitive way living in different realities. Okay. So, another thing is that the immigrants are suffering, but the Canadians are also suffering. So, both groups are suffering. And then another thing is that he talked about in the video is MAID, so medical assistance in dying in Canada. So I believe this is evil. So 25 years ago this was illegal, and right now 10 or 15 years ago the government brought it in, and now they say to people in like a pamphlet that they released that they say that suicide is bad. Suicide by the government is good. This is literally what they say in this pamphlet. They kind of leave some stupid reasons for why they think that, but overall it's evil, and it's just they're kind of trying to play a game on people, and to convince them to believe this stuff. And then, so in 2016, there were 1,000 deaths by MAID in Canada. In 2021, it's 10,000. So it's growing rapidly. The median days until you die, if you request MAID, is about 10. So if somebody requests MAID, the doctor is just going to say, great idea, we can get that done for you in a little under 2 weeks. Or a little over a week. You know, it's not very long. So I believe these are evil doctors, evil government, and evil policymakers and bureaucrats who do this stuff. They don't really have a conscience, and you know, they're probably afraid. They're probably doing it for their position, for some reason or other, and it's very evil, in my opinion. There was a 71% approval rate if you applied for it in 2019, and it's gone now to 81% in 2021. So the approval rate is really high as well. And the reasons that people give for doing MAID is their nature of suffering, why they want to die, is 86% say that it's a loss of ability to engage in meaningful activities, and 83% say it's a loss of ability to perform activities of daily living. So the first one, loss of ability to engage in meaningful activities, is a bad reason. The reason for this is that God does not want you to kill yourself just because you feel bad. And actually, it's a stupid reason, because life, really, we suffer in life. And you may be suffering because it brings you closer to God. So this is actually how a lot of people come closer to God. So it's evil because you're not really giving these people a chance to come closer to God. You're just, encouraging them to kill themselves. Which is horrible. So anyways, right, so the next thing is that the stock market is booming. So these are all signs of decline in society, or civilization, or an empire. So the stock market is booming throughout the world, while real productivity is down. The U.S. government is in $37 trillion in debt. the people are in 17 trillion in debt through credit cards or whatever, and mortgages, and this creates inequality. So it's just more stuff about inequality. So the stock market, it's booming. Who owns stock? Well, 90% of stock is owned by about 10% of people. So it's the rich people who are actually getting richer, while the poor people are going into more and more debt. The next thing is that the bureaucrats are actually more and more gaslighting the public. They say things like, we're not in a recession, we're in a transition. The government, especially under Trudeau, our last prime minister, he was a Liberal prime minister, and now we have another Liberal prime minister. I don't know how that's possible that the government voted for that, or the people voted for that again. But our new one is Mark Carney. But Trudeau said, you're xenophobic if you don't want immigration. And so my lower back is actually really hurting me. But I just have kind of like a problem with my sacral bone right now. So the government more and more actually gaslights the people. And partly the government gaslights the people through all this vague positive talk, or positive mindset talk, or stuff about, a good life, or about success for everyone, or all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, they're doing all this other crazy stuff, and then that's their propaganda in front, is they kind of just keep you chugging along and make you feel like you're crazy, make you feel like you're a bad person for feeling bad, and say, well, why aren't you feeling good? And so it's really crazy. It's more of that elephant in the room growing and growing thing, while you push up against the wall trying to smile, because you don't want to go against the grain. So another thing is that Canada's resources are all owned by the US or overseas, usually the British. Okay, so that's just called privatization and asset stripping. So Canada is kind of just like this resource bank. So who benefits from all of these trends? Rich pensioners. So those people are all Jew controlled. That's, what I believe. I have a lot of reasons for believing that. But needless to say, or despite that, it's mostly the rich pensioners who benefit. And so 20% of our population in Canada is 65 plus. These are the boomers, the baby boomers. And you want 1 to 3 pensioners per worker. Well, right now it's less than that. One statistic I saw on the video, it said it was 18.1 pensioners to 13.7 workers. So this doesn't work in reality, and the pension system will go bankrupt in 5 to 10 years. Another thing is that older people are now living for longer. They used to, when the pension system was put into place, at age 65 you get a pension, people were dying around age 72. Now they live very long. Old people can live for a really long time due to medical advancements and lifestyle changes. So the old people control the government. But remember who controls the old people. And the government dictates the policies. So in Japan, 25% of their society is 65 plus in 2014, and Germany was 21%. by 2050, it will be 40% of their society will be 65 plus, and in Germany it will be 30%. So what do these old people all really want? And actually, first I'll say my own note is that I notice this everywhere. It's all old people. I see old people all over the place. And especially the places that I go to, I see a ton of old people because I go to church and I go to church events. I go to Catholic church. There's not really any young people. The ratio is like 10% young people. And then, there's some middle age, majority old people. 70%, 80% old people, gray hair. And actually, I was at a Catholic event about a week or so ago, and I was sitting there. I walked in, all people, oh, great. I was sitting there, and I'm not that social, so I wasn't really talking to people. And old person comes up to me and says, "You need to smile more," or "You should smile more." And I felt terrible. I just wanted to leave. But I think in a way she was trying to be nice. But yeah, the old person thing, I have old person fatigue. I feel like they're living in a different reality because you cannot say anything to them. It's like their brains are calcified. They don't learn any new information. Their mental models can't somehow take in new information very well. I don't know. They're like fried or something from... I'm not saying I'm much better. I'm not saying I'm some perfect person on all this, and I still love everybody because we have to. It says in the Bible you have to love everybody, even your enemies. I'm not saying all the old people are my enemy either. I'm just saying that it's really hard to actually have a discussion with them. They're, that we've been taught all these things when we're young, that they're wise and all of this, and actually they're very greedy, and it's like they're living in a different world in a way, It's, yeah. This society is not looking good right now. It's in decline. It's really bad. Okay, and then okay, so what do old people want? Well, they want lockdown whenever there's a virus, because who dies from a virus or germs? It's old people. So why did we have such a very terrible lockdown in 2020? Well, it was huge amounts of fear mongering, and it was it was planned because that virus was made in a lab. Even the White House website will tell you it came from a lab. There's all this stuff about gain of function research. They gave you all these lies at first that it was organic or it came from a wet market. It wasn't true. So there's a lot of stuff there, and then it comes out. We have huge, massive fear mongering, and the society shuts down. And who are the people that actually died? Old people. And they died, a lot of it was from previous medical complications and all this. And it's sad, of course, but that's what happens, right? The old people want to stay safe, lock down everything. Doesn't matter that kids aren't going to school, they're all socially not being developed properly. Their education is, businesses are shutting down. Doesn't matter that much. Old people dictate the policy. And another thing old people want is more of a police state. And this is not totally like all old people, but a lot of them would vote for more stuff for safety. What they call safety, because safety can kind of sound nice, but a lot of it is actually intrusive government interference into personal lives. And also surveillance, right? Mass surveillance. And then another thing is online safety acts or hate speech laws. So in Canada, we just had more hate speech laws passed. In Britain, they arrest, I think, 30 people a day for hate speech offenses. Somebody called somebody else a muppet online, and they were arrested by the British police. So more and more censorship, more and more hate speech laws or online safety acts. And also, you know, we could be moving toward digital currency, cashless stores, microchipping, facial recognition. Facial recognition is already pretty used a lot. You know, companies like Palantir. China is huge on facial recognition. And they also want immigration to do the labor. To be the nurses, to be the cooks, to be the gardeners, to be the restaurant workers, fast food workers. And another thing we'll see is a lot of foreign wars. Old people are fine with sending young people to go die for a war. They're not going to go fight, you know. Okay, so all in all, my kind of thoughts about this. The society that we're living in, it's one of fear and survival is really what runs a lot of it. Lively discussions are allowed, but within bounds. You cannot criticize what's outside the bound, right? Maybe you heard of the Overton window. So what's in the Overton window you can criticize. What's in the bounds you can criticize. You can have a very lively discussion. That's allowed. People actually like watching that. You know, they feel something. But if you say something outside of the bounds, you go to jail for hate speech law. You'll go to, you'll be socially pushed away. People won't talk to you. There will be a tension in the air. Things will get really cold in the room. And it's chilling. The speech is chilled. And this is so true. I mean, this is so true. And there's not really any room for these things. You know, there's not really any openness for these things in our society. All you really get is fakeness. You get, hi, how are you? Good, how are you? And then someone like, you know, will talk about nonsense. People just talk about nonsense all the time. It's just a lot of nonsense, you know? And, yeah, it's awful. And you cannot criticize who controls you. So you cannot criticize Jews. There's anti-Semitism laws. There's Holocaust denial or revision laws. You'll go to jail for 2 years. Yeah. It doesn't matter if the things you are saying are true. That doesn't matter. You know? They'll say it's hate speech. It's inciting hatred. It's inciting whatever. You cannot say these things. You cannot say the truth. Infighting is allowed and encouraged. Men versus women, that's all good. We want that, you know? We want men and women to be focused on fucking each other. Excuse my language. On, you know, just trying to hook up as much. The hypergamous culture. We want that. Women, you can have sex with as many guys as you want. You know, that's feminism. That's great. Men, be one of the high tier males. Be a Chad. Be a Chadlite. Be a high tier normie. Don't be a subhuman. Right. That's the looks maxing framework. You know, and it's kind of based off reality. The men who are attractive, the top 20%, get 80% of women, or have 80% of options, right? They want men to focus on this stuff. They want women to, I don't know, post a lot of like videos trash talking men, that's all allowed, that's all good, right? Who's responsible for your problems? Oh, it's men. Oh, it's women, And the funny thing is that there are some facts within these bounds. Don't talk about what's outside the bounds. Don't talk about that, Don't talk about the loss of religion. Don't talk about the degradation of our society, all these other things, It's crazy. And then distraction is a huge one too. A lot of people I see, they're really vehement. They've come up with these mental models that totally disregard facts, a lot of facts, They kind of play alongside the facts. They're kind of alternate, they're parallel in a way. They're sort of like this alternate reality I'm talking about. Stuff like talking about, it's capitalism is the worst thing for everybody. Capitalism. That's why. It's the capitalists. Oh, it's the globalists. It's the worst thing for everybody. It's class-based, right? Now there's some truth to that, but people don't want to talk about any of the other parts of truth, the families, who are these people? Why does it only come down to like a few hundred families that are behind all this stuff, right? Why is it that every president is related to each other? That's weird, right? Except for one. I believe it's except for Trump. Even Obama is related to all the other presidents, right? That's weird, right? But it's true. So, yeah, distraction. But also with distraction, running out of time, is video games, comic books, superhero movies, all this other weird shit, or like childish stuff, constant Netflix stuff, bread and circus, a lot of junk food encouraged, You can go ahead and go on the dopamine treadmill, right? Junk food makes you feel good. Scrolling your phone for comic books, feel good right away, Go on Discord, play with your friends. Doesn't matter if you're 30, 40, 50, 60. Go on Reddit. Reddit is so completely controlled as to what you can say. And have a lively discussion about, some of these niche subreddits that you found that are criticizing all men or criticizing all women. Have some interconflict between the subreddits, Have these like little groups and stuff, and go on Twitch. Have your favorite streamers who gives you all like a thimbleful of substance in every stream, right? These centrists and whatever. It's a bread and circus for the masses. So I would say that the current climate is very poor. I think that, a lot of people are, forgive the term, but I have to be accurate here. I think a lot of people are retarded. That's just the best way I could put it, but, it's kind of hard to define that because like the masses are really controlled. And it's just, it's really, I'm not saying that I'm like so much better or anything. I'm just saying, like, if you talk to people, you get nowhere. You get almost nowhere. So I think that a lot of people are kind of retarded, they're blind, they're crazy. They're gaslighting each other with this whole talk about positive mindset, It's your mindset. There's all these kind of books about mindset, about, all this stuff, right? It's just how you're thinking. So I think that Canadians are really incapable of having a real discussion. They're passive aggressive and defensive. And I think there's a lot of fear about speaking the truth, for hate speech laws and for social pressure.